I think it's happening on a level now with a lot more. There's a lot more alchemists who don't know they're alchemists out there, and I think that's part of what my job is to help help awaken the alchemists who are the butterflies.
Right.
It's a new consciousness that we're part of, that we're all stepping into. But in order to step into it, it's a new way of being. And it's the mind ego thing has created all that we have now. It's
Right.
the expansion, it's the patriarchy, it's this whole thing that we've developed. We had to go through this phase of evolution
Right.
to create what we have, but
Civilization.
we're at the end of that. We're stepping into something entirely new.
Maybe it is that huge. We're
It
like
is.
things that are like really foundational.
Yeah.
Giant things.
But all that stuff will develop as humanity steps out of the mind ego way and is able to become the watcher of the whole experience and be a perfect light channel of your own particular recipe of life. You know, your own perfect recipe, so that because it's there to allow it's there to serve the greater evolution of the species.
Hi there. Colin Davis, shadowtechalchemy.com, solutioalchemy.com, solutiopodcast.com. What are all the websites? melissamarimovie.com, melissamarimusic.com. Yeah, so where are we? So what are we doing? So now here we are. It's Tuesday, the 21st of July. And today I'm gonna improvise a little bit, because I put the title of the broadcast up, which was Living Whole in the Modern World, or something like that. And of course I'm taking it from the perspective of being a psycho-spiritual alchemist, so to speak, from the point of view of being a life artist. And someone who's dedicated to working on himself and understanding his consciousness and understanding the nature of reality. And so, when I say living whole in the modern world, that's coming from a kind of artist alchemist perspective. And those are the kind of people who would even want to hear my conversations. And so, so I have my notes here, and we'll skip around and we'll get into that. And we will approach that from from several different directions. And then with these broadcasts that are more on the improvisational side of things, I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but hang tight and probably some good stuff will come out. Now, I would just update you with kind of what I've been doing lately, and I think I explained last week that I had done a workshop. Where's my cognitive recall right now? I had done a workshop and down at Casa de Luz in Austin. It had gone well. It was on Jungian shadow work. Small but good and deep. And so that was nice to get started doing those in-person workshops, because this is the first time I'm doing anything outside in the world by myself without Melissa, in terms of the Shadowtech Alchemy or Solutio or any of that. I always have my music, my band and everything that has been going on for, since before Melissa. But it was interesting, preparing for that and doing that. And so now my next one is going to be on alchemical relationships. And it's caused me to also think about how do I want to interface with the public in general other than these YouTube broadcasts. Now, we've been doing these pretty well. I mean, in the past, Melissa and I had done podcasts. I think we had done 2 other attempts to do a podcast, but we never really could keep it going. I think we did 20 or 21 shows on each of those 2 before we stopped. And we were just thinking, okay, well, we've talked about our whole thing. We've sort of delivered our philosophy and our techniques of shadow work and all of that, and what else is there to say? And we were able to, just stay entertained and stay busy on all of the shadow tech work that we were doing, and our band, the L1 Experience. We really didn't need to fill up our time with doing a podcast. And if people weren't going to show up really for it, because it takes a while to build those things, and what we're talking about is very esoteric, so it kind of burnt out pretty quick. So when I said that I was going to start doing this one, it was because I realized that without Melissa here, I need to have a social outreach. And I said to myself, okay, well, I'm going to force myself to figure out how to do one of these shows every week, and just go over some of the material is new every week and some of it is old, and just keep renewing the material and keep telling it in a way that still sounds inspirational, and I can just keep on doing it. And that's how, I have to learn to master that, to be able to do that. And if you look at really any kind of broadcaster, this is what they're doing. They have their shtick, they have their script, they have their they have their curriculum, however you want to put it, and they just kind of go over it again. Now, also with a lot of broadcasters, they do interviews, and so that's a great way to open it up and broaden it out and deepen it and get other people's perspective. But in this subject, with what I talk about, with what Melissa and I talked about, it's really hard to find people who are doing or have done what we have done. It's just I can barely think of anybody that I can actually talk to and they would go, yeah, man, yeah, me too, same here, I'm doing my own version of that. I mean, I can think Paul Levy. We've interviewed him a couple of times. Paul Levy is one person who is, he has that whole thing of awaken in the dream, right? Which is like a different version of living in the movie. So, and then he's got the Wetiko thing, which is our archetype of the virus, we call it. So it's so funny that, we didn't try to copy Paul or anything like that. We found him. And we're like, hey, wait a minute, you're doing the same thing we're doing, more or less. And so actually, I remember we went, and that was a big trip for us. We went up to Oregon and we met Paul, and we went and had lunch with him. And that was a very synchronistic and cool trip. It would have been 12 years ago now. And I still have that interview, that original conversation on audio. But, Paul is someone, obviously, that I can talk to, and we can be like, yeah, we can be in sync. And there's other people who are living in the movie, so to speak. I can think of Robert Moss, who's a Jungian, and all the people that were in the sync movement that we found in Berkeley and in the Bay Area. There's plenty of people who are, working with one or two of our concepts. But then we always get back to the shadow. And it's like, okay, the shadow. Hey, everybody, what about the shadow? And people are like, oh, I don't know about that. So, I mean, and so anyway, in fact, so this is originally the idea of Solutio, because Melissa is the one that said, I came up with Solutio, the word. I mean, it comes from alchemy. And Melissa said, yeah, that's it. That's the word. You should use that. And what I was thinking of doing is making a think tank. It was going to be Solutio think tank, as where I was going to get together people who are sort of second tier thinkers, so to speak, using integral language there, and kind of have powwows and figure things out. But again, I was just like, who the hell do I get on here? And so that is where I have been running into a problem. And I'm not trying to state it in a way so that it's like make me sound, so rarefied or anything like that, but it's just the fact of the matter. And it's like I can transcribe what I'm saying to other languages, other ways of seeing things. Like when I talk to Paul, I have to transcribe him and he has to transcribe me a little bit. But we're locked. We know what we're talking about, and we're on the same path. He's kind of more on the Buddhist. He's a Jungian who kind of went into Buddhism, and I'm still more on the Jungian path. But so anyway, that kind of gets in the way of having an interview show. And if you look on Shadow Tech Alchemy YouTube page, you'll see there's some interviews with some people on there and stuff. And I'm having to think about how to do that again. How do I, I don't have to be totally holistic with everybody. I can kind of be like, okay, you can talk about this subject, you can talk about this subject. But I tend to this was the same issue with Melissa. Both of us tend to sort of mystify people. And they're like, I don't know what this shadow guy is, and what is this thing, and what, so here I am just, doing my thing. And if you guys can find other people who speak my language, send them over to me. And I'm just going to have to let it unfold the way it unfolds. And I'll just keep doing the broadcast every week and keep doing the workshops and keep putting my stuff out. And the community that forms around it will be, the circle of friends. That's what it'll be. So I didn't know I was going to even talk about that or even put things that way. But that's just, like I said, it's an improvisational podcast today. So the Solutio thing, though. So now Solutio went from being the think tank that didn't really kind of work out to being this broadcast weekly. And now I have it opened up to being, it's been growing as this, but I just haven't really put it out this way yet. More of a community group or support group and learning group. And so it has to have a public. It has to have a public face. It has to work with people physically in person. That has to be the basis of it. This broadcast here, this is sort of like is going to be an offshoot of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have regular meetings in public. And right now, because I'm in Austin, Texas, just south of Austin, I'm going to do them in Austin. And I'm going to go, figure out if it's going to be at Casa de Luz or where it's going to be. But I'm going to do regular meetings over there. And it's going to have a certain kind of format to it that's going to be it's going to be a support group for people who are learning what we talk about here. They don't have to have rigorously studied my material or anything like that. The one sort of foundation, the foundational sort of the ideological foundation of it is Jungian psychology. And because even though what Melissa and I developed is its own form of inner alchemy, with its own practices and its own terminology, its own particular way of expressing itself. It is another formulation that is it's in the same family. It's in the alchemical or hermetic family. And it's very, and it's not only closely related to what Jung developed, but we wouldn't have been able to have done what we did without his work, without his maps. And so he's sort of a parent of this, a patron saint, you could say, of this. And there's plenty of Jungian groups out there. But most Jungian groups are just... most Jungian groups are there to really just approach things from Jung's perspective and other Jungians who have translated his work. Whereas what we're doing is our own personal manifestation of it that's similar to what he did in the first place. And so, and then the Jungians, I've noticed that the Jungians are, I'm a Gen Xer, and so the people that I seem to be meeting or that are coming on here or whatever are Gen Xers and millennials. And the boomers are the great Jungians were from the two generations before the boomers. They were the generation of Carl Jung himself, the people, or actually a lot of the people who were around him were one generation younger, because he was born in 1875. And then you had people like, Marie-Louise von Franz and Anelia Jaffa and these people that are around him at the time. They were younger than him, but they're the original Jungians. And then you have the silent generation people, and then you have the baby boomers. And so that's the what do they say? It's the greatest generation, silent generation. Anyway, so and the peak of Jung's influence on culture was the 60s and 70s. And then it faded. And the generations since that time, didn't really carry on in a very formal way. Still, you can go to a Jungian, you can get a degree, you can get your bachelor's in psychology, and then you can go get your master's from a Jungian institute somewhere. You can go to Pacifica, and you could probably go to Chicago, and you can go to Zurich, and there's a few places you can go to get an actual degree in Jungian psychology and to be a Jungian analyst. But and there's plenty of extracurricular education and all of that you can get if you want to kind of go the academic route. But that's really not going to work very much. I know people are still going and getting those degrees, but what are you going to do with that? What are you going to do with that now? I don't see how you could use that. And so you're kind of stuck inside this little container and stuff, and I don't know how you can even really, the whole thing of therapy and having a practice that can actually, that you got 6 clients a day or whatever the hell people do for practices, or what they used to do. This is all falling apart. So I don't really see how the formal academic direction really works that way well, unless that's kind of that's where you kind of come from, your family or academics, but you're the black sheep of the academics, and you go get your Jungian degree and stuff. I don't see, that's not the way it's going to work out. The way it's working out is just anyone and everyone who is attracted to Jung is going to go into it on their own, There's no need to, to learn the system. There's no need to get a formal education. To put it into practice, you need practice. And part of getting your education, getting your degree is to be analyzed, is to be in analysis. And this is your first experience with actual practice. But that's not that long. And what you can do alternately is that you can do this with your partner. That's what Melissa and I did. You can do this with your partner. You can do this with someone else. You don't have to do this in the traditional way. So, and what I'm talking about, because what I'm saying here is I'm kind of backing up this group that I'm starting. And so what I'm saying is that I'm considering alternative formats for how people can learn the Jungian way and practice with each other and do it in a more open way. So it's experimental because, typically if you go into the protocols and culture of psychotherapy, you will find very good reasons why people don't just, embrace psychotherapy in any kind of haphazard way. It's very bounded for good reasons. And so opening it up outside of that is experimental. But been all kinds of ways people have experimented, with psychology and psychospirituality, of course, especially in the 70s. But so what I've been doing is thinking about how I was looking at how AA works, how the anonymous groups work, because I've always been influenced by them. I've always thought that what they're doing it's obviously powerful and helpful to millions of people. But the thing and I like a lot about what they do and how they work. But the thing about them that is different from what I'm considering here is that in the anonymous groups, they don't analyze each other. They don't do that. They're very accepting. It's for listening. It's for getting stuff off your chest. It's like the confession model of the Catholic Church. So you get to confess. And so people have a shared relational field, and they bond around their shared experiences and being in recovery and falling off the wagon and all of that goes along with it. And so it's a space for people who are people who are wounded to be able to support each other and love each other, and who can tolerate the ups and downs of recovery and all of that. Beautiful. Can't find fault with that, really. Not really, but it exists at a certain level. And then what I'm saying is that we need that support aspect there. That needs to be there at the base. But then we need analysis above that, because generally, there's different groups, anonymous groups that are, they're all independent and they can do things the way they want. But in general, they do not focus on, people can be in therapy over here and then they go to their meetings. But the meetings are not therapeutic. They are therapeutic, but they're not about analysis. And nobody is learning the shared vocabulary of a certain kind of psychospiritual practice. Now, it's interesting because AA actually could interface with Jungian psychology. And because AA was founded out of Jungian psychology, they don't take it to the level of analysis, but they were founded out of it. And I was recently rereading the letters from Bill W., who's the founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, and Carl Jung himself from 1961, before Jung's death. That basically they tell the story of how one of the original men who inspired Bill W. to start the group, this guy named Roland H., I think, was a patient of Carl Jung in Switzerland. And Jung said, listen, man, you're in bad shape. And the only thing I can really see is that if you can have a religious conversion, that actually does save people. From time to time, that happens. And if you want to, go in that direction, then that might do it for you. And this guy actually did have a religious, he actually, had visions and all of this in church and everything. And he joined this Oxford group, which was this theological society or something like that. And then he met Bill W., and the whole thing got passed on. And he told Bill W. about his conversion experience, and Bill W. kind of was like, okay, he tried to figure out what are the principles of this kind of healing. And then he started AA, and it went on for years, for decades. And then he finally wrote Carl Jung, Good Instinct, just months before his death, and said, hey, hi, did you know? You probably didn't know this, but you started AA in a way. And he recalled the story, and they had a couple letters back and forth. So AA is naturally aligned with the Jungian spirit to a degree, although they do not, what was included in AA was some small portion of the Jungian mindset. And this was something that Jung always believed, that addiction is kind of a substitute for spiritual numinosity. And so that was included in there. But the rest of Jungian analysis and the whole topology of the Jungians of the shadow, or of the psyche and the shadow and all that kind of stuff, that's not in the AA system. So I'm looking at this whole thing. I'm looking at Solutio and going, okay, if I were to have in-person meeting groups and stuff, I want to learn from that. I want to take some of that works. But then I want to do something different. I want to do something that's a little more evolved than that, I would say. A little more sophisticated than that. Because, yeah. So what I was thinking is that, and I'm writing all this down and sort of crunching it out, is that one of the shared, the main shared cultural blueprint or script that everybody in this kind of a meeting has is they're all interested in Jungian psychology. From there, anything goes. That doesn't have, you can still be into Eastern stuff or whatever you're into. Blavatsky, if you're into that, or whatever it is, Steiner, whatever it is. But that you are interested in using the Jungian system as a basic language and framework for working on yourself and for living and being an alchemist. And so with that there, then we can put some of the other ideas that were in these other systems in there. So I don't know if I'm going to keep going on right now about like some of the details of this, but I did imagine there would be, you can, like in AA, they have sponsors. So basically everybody's a peer and they share, and then you have a sponsor. And so I was thinking something similar in that people offer, like on the whiteboard, they offer if they have time to be a peer. Anybody that has time to be a peer is available to take the phone call from anybody else in the group that wants some private talk to help them analyze their situation, their whatever's going on that they're working with. And they can go from one peer to the next. You can talk to as many people as you want to. And then there will be some individuals who are more experienced, and those will be guides. And those people, can be available too. And then when you have a meeting, people can talk about what they've been working with their peer on. And then if they want input from somebody who has more experience, from one of the guides, from me or whoever else is in there that has more of a background on this, then they can ask for it, and they could say if anybody wants to like sort of comment back on what we just shared, then have at it. And some people will just share and they won't ask for that. You don't have to have a peer, but actually, you're encouraged to have one because you can't work on yourself and heal alone. It's impossible. You can go through long periods where you work on yourself alone. That's important and necessary, but you can't do your whole process that way. Doesn't work, because it takes another person in your field to start activating your complexes, and so that you can get the experience of having those complexes activate in relationship and then working through them. You can't do that alone. So anyway, those are some of the ideas that I'm putting into the hat about this. And there's some other stuff in there that I have written down, some other sort of foundational things that are in there. I'm kind of working it through, but I can see where this is going. And this is all basically because Melissa's not around anymore, and so everything that we did now has to find some kind of social container. So like I made the movie about Melissa, that's going into the public. That will be on YouTube, released by the end of this year, beginning of next year. It's still available to anybody that wants to see the movie about Melissa who hasn't seen it. melissamarimovie.com. You can just contact me, I'll give you the link. But so that's one, and I got more movies, that I'm starting to write right now. Then there's the story, the fictional story that we wrote about half of, about these fictional characters called Will and Faith that represent us, but they represent the alchemical couple, the sacred marriage, the alchemical king and queen, the anima and the animus, and the zero and the one, we called it. The duality principle, the archetypal masculine and feminine, and all of that duality is in there. And so we have these characters and we have this whole story, and it's kind of like, I kind of think of it, it's kind of like a mix between The Ninth Gate, if anybody's ever seen that, with Johnny Depp. It's a Roman Polanski movie. It's a dark, esoteric detective thriller. It's super cool and super aesthetically well put together. The Ninth Gate, I love The Ninth Gate. Great movie. I don't see a whole lot of movies. I know my friend Stephanie, who's in here, she does, but I don't see that many movies. I love The Ninth Gate, but it's kind of like The Ninth Gate meets The Matrix, meets John Borman's Excalibur, the Grail myth. Only the 1981 version of Excalibur. And what else? There was another movie I was going to mention. I can't remember what I was going to say. But But it's like that. And it's these, it mixes current day conspiracy culture. So you got all the red pill stuff in there too. But so this is the thing, and I just, because I spent the first year after Melissa passed just working on that film about her, and now this year it's been about kind of the next level of things. I put out a number of papers, and I designed that workshop. I got the other one. Now I'm doing Solutio and this broadcast. It's this other stuff now, but now I'm pulling the Will and Faith story back out. All the stuff that I'm doing was all on our list of everything that had to be accomplished, that came through us, that was channeled through us in the 12 years we were together, and that we realized we either started it, or like with the band, we did the band. We actually did the band. We wrote the book, Shadow Tech. So there were some things that we completed, but there were some things that were not completed, and the story of Will and Faith was one of them. And so I pulled out all my notes on this, all my original writings on this. Only about half the movie's done. Couldn't get it done. And I realized the reason why I couldn't get it done is because it's based on us, not totally, but to enough of a degree to where it couldn't be written until we figured out what was going to happen with us. And Melissa passed, and so now that has huge implications for me and for the story and for the philosophy behind it. So now I'm at the place where I can either finish the story or I can at least go to the next level of it. I don't even know for sure if I can actually finish it now, but I think probably it's time. I think I can. I'm pushing forward on it, and I've been putting all my stuff into Claude, the AI program, and then we've been basically organizing it because I have alternate versions of all kinds of scenes. So we're going through that and summarizing it and all of that, and I'm having these amazing conversations with Claude. And I always warn people with using AI. Claude's my favorite of the ones I've used, but that he'll lead you astray and stuff if you're not careful. And his language, you have to go through it and everything. But he is thinking about what you're saying, and he's got a 200 IQ or whatever it is, and he knows a lot of subjects, and you can make him study subjects before you talk to him. You can say, study this or read this book, and he'll do it. And so it's pretty great. And so if you don't have somebody else who's, where at your level, you can kind of program him to think, about things the way you think, and then use him as a lab partner, with all those caveats. But anyway, so I've been working with him on this story, and so that's in production. So that's another thing that I'm doing, and it's just like, and it's all Melissa stuff. This is all stuff that was through Melissa. So let me see what you guys are saying over here, and then I'll get back to my notes, and we'll and it's nice to see everyone, and hi to folks who are saying hi, and hello Sarah. It's been a while. Haven't seen Sarah for a while, and the rest of you guys. Stephanie, there's a sponsorship which is not just listening. Definitely. You have a sponsor. Everybody gets a sponsor. And your sponsor is your guide. But they're not using psychology. They're not using any kind of psychological. That particular person might have some psychological background who can help you with that. But psychology isn't part of the system. You said it right there. A sponsor isn't a therapist, though. Sarah says, I think you should do that. Rehabilitation for the spiritually dead. So funny. That's not what I'm doing, Sarah. Rehabilitate. I mean, maybe. I mean, you could come in there as a spiritual zombie and get a dose. But I suspect that the people who will come in there are the people who are spiritually estranged but not dead. Yeah, she laughs. It's funny. Let's see what else. Sarah, yes, good move. Oh, she likes the ninth gate. That's great. Let me know if you need help with editing. Oh, oh, well, thank you. With the editing, no, I'm an editor myself, and so I got that, and I got Claude. I have been so busy and oh, you've had some more. Oh, hello there, Camille. Hi. You've been having some resurgences there, Sarah. Yeah. Well, you can call me anytime. I encourage you to call me. So, and so there we go. So hi to everybody in the chat. And now let's get back to where we were. So I hope what I'm saying is entertaining enough. Oh, I should mention, because I got Stephanie in here, and I have it written down here that I started helping Stephanie, actually. Speaking of editing, I'm helping her with a paper where she's taking her whole framework. I won't spill the beans on it or anything here, but she's taking her framework and putting it through 4 quadrants. And it's amazing. And it's so beautiful, and it's so helpful to be able to do that. And I'm really into Wilber's 4 quadrants, and I encourage every one of you to look it up if you haven't looked at it, or go on my Shadowtech Alchemy website and look on the papers page and download the Integral Shadow paper. It's right there. You just download it. Integral Shadow paper, and it explains the Wilber's 4 quadrant system, and then it puts the shadow, Jung's shadow, through the 4 quadrants and shows you how it's mind, body, relationship, culture, society, institutions. It breaks it up into all those and explains it that way, so you can see how the shadow is holistic. But then it also gives you shadow work practices across all those domains. So yeah, so you can basically learn the 4 quadrants that way. And you can look online and stuff, and I'm sure there's plenty of geeks that are on YouTube talking about 4 quadrants, or it's probably not as popular now, but it's amazing. So I'm really glad Stephanie's doing that. Now, what else? I got some other stuff here. I was going to talk about Neumann's new ethic again, but I'm going to put that to the back right now. Okay, let's go to the subject of what we're talking about today. Let's go to actually how to be whole in the modern world. And again, we're talking about things from the perspective of a life artist, from this perspective of an alchemist, from the perspective of a psychospiritual individual, a self-healer, a wounded healer, people who are internal, people who have an internal life. People who are working on themselves, people who are studying themselves, their own nature, people who are evolving. That's the most important thing. People who are evolving from the inside out. And the first thing I want to say to you guys, to anybody that's on that path, whether they're using an Eastern modality or whatever, they're probably not using mainstream Western religion to do this, because you're going to hit a wall with that real quick. That's not about evolving. Christianity, Judaism, Islam is not about evolving. Now, there are the mystical sub-traditions of each of those, and they are definitely more advanced, and they're definitely more about evolving. Kabbalah or Sufism or other Christian mystic orientations, but they're really far in the I guess they have their lineage. They have their lineage. So yeah. So I say those are definite paths. Those are definite paths that are evolutionary to some degree or another, and you can find out whether or not if you hit a wall with those. But the Eastern paths are much more evolutionary, and then I think the Jungian path is the most evolutionary of all the psychospiritual paths. aside from whatever, very esoteric kinds of paths are out there. Because the Jungian path is the alchemical path, and the alchemical path is the only one, it's the only way, the capital W, where you actually transmute your shadow. It's only alchemy is doing this. It could be, Chinese alchemy, but only alchemy is doing this. Only alchemy says, I have to go into the lower material. I have to pull it up. I have to say, what is this? And I have to get it out of the unconscious, put it into the conscious, and find a place for it in my consciousness, in my persona and in my consciousness. And the process of doing that cleans it, sheds it, refines it, breaks it down, so that what ends up being integrated is the gold. Also, though, the darker part doesn't get integrated as much as it gets known. The gold gets integrated, and then the archetypal dark stuff, the primal monkey stuff, that stays because that's part of humanity. But you have a relationship with it. And so it can't take you over and get fed into autonomous complexes and all kinds of little creepy little sideshows like most people have to deal with. They have to deal with all kinds of, it's called shady behavior, which is how the shadow, the primal shadow, is trying to find a way out. Or it's finding a way out through autonomous complexes that just take you over and turn you into a monster real quick, and that dumps your shadow stuff. So, and mainstream religions, they use projection and displacement as a matter of course. It's all about, you're the bad guy, we need to reform you or kill you. That's what these religions are all about. They have their love and peace side and all of that, but then they have their warrior part of killing or converting the heathens. They all have that. And it's all about projection. It's all about displacement. And so it's only alchemy that says what I'm seeing out there that's dark is a function of me. And it's my responsibility to find that and pull that up and clean it, process it, integrate it. That's my job. And when I do that, I become more whole, I become more advanced, I become a higher consciousness human being, and I pull myself out of the chain of evil. And it was interesting. I thought when I wrote my second book, Transforming Darkness, it's called the subtitle is A Shadow Work Toolkit for the Red-Pilled Initiate. And I thought it was going to be the red-pilled people who were going to get, okay, so here's this shadow stuff, everybody, and start working on it in yourself. And here's a whole toolkit here's a whole 4-quadrant toolkit for you. That didn't pick up. That didn't take off because this is one of the cool things I got. I've gotten a lot of cool things from Claude, but Claude is the one that pointed out that said, no, the red pill people are projecting just as much as the Christians and the Muslims and the Jews are. They're projecting just as much as anybody. They have to have an outside demon. They have to have a Bill Gates. They have to have whoever, Barack Obama or Donald Trump or whoever. They have to have somebody. They have to have the Zionists. They have to have the New World Order. They have to have somebody out there. They have to have an Epstein, whatever it is. They have to have somebody out there to blame and to hold up as the evil one. Regardless of the fact if they are totally unconscious, shadow-possessed people, which they are, maybe. They're complicated like all humans. They're not just that. But even if they are creepy and quote-unquote evil, they're acting as a scapegoat. And people are using them to project and displace their own shadow junk out of their own bodies, instead of picking it up as a practice, as a spiritual practice. So it's only alchemy that takes projection and turns it back on yourself and says, that's for me to process in me. That is not for me to go to war with out there. Whatever I want to go to war with out there is a mirror of something in me, and that's my business and my responsibility to work that through. So it's not to say that there isn't evil out there, that there isn't bad or there isn't pathology out in the world, but that's not your first priority. I mean, obviously, if somebody's breaking into your house, you're going to stop that. But your priority is not to be looking for scapegoats and targets for your shadow all over the place. It's to be processing it in your own life. Only alchemy does that, because it's in the archetype of alchemy. It's negrito, albedo, rubedo, negrito, albedo, rubedo. It's and you go to the prima materia. You go to the lower material first, and that's what you start refining with. So every other system, some systems go in there and they find shadow stuff. Like I have this paper about alchemy and the evolution of spiritual systems. It's on the papers page again. And it talks about different spiritual traditions and how they deal with the shadow. The mainstream religions, they're all projectors and displacers. They're bypassers. I call them bypassers in the paper. They just bypass. And then you have some practices like in like the Tibetan practice of Chode, which is like you go and you find the demons and then you feed the demons. People might have heard of Lama Tsultrim Allione and her book, Feeding the Demons, which is a take on that. And so you in her version of it, you ask the demon, what do you want and what do you need? So it always has some kind of desire. But then what it needs is love, relationship. It needs something healing. And so then you find out what it wants and you give it what it needs. And you imagine the demon or this, however you want to see it, sitting in the chair across from you. And so that's an old practice. And you do this active imagination. So that's cool, and that's very similar to what this Tibetan thing. But it's not alchemical transmutation. It's not. And so its efficacy is unknown to me. I think it's probably, it's it's like well, I won't go on about that. But there's different levels of different traditions touch the shadow to different degrees. And so this is where I'm at with the whole thing. And then in the 20th century, 21st century, where is our alchemy? Where is our alchemical? If alchemy is the only one that transmutes the shadow, and the shadow is the personal correlate to external evil, it's like our number one priority, even though it's completely invisible to the society. Once you see it, you realize it's the invisible elephant in the living room and you have to start addressing it. So what practices address it? It's only alchemy that addresses it. And then where is our alchemy? Who has our alchemy? Well, it's Carl Jung. He's the only one really that has developed it to a level of sophistication and depth that actually is a whole spiritual way. You have some other I don't know what Gurdjieff is doing or something, and there is some stuff in Gurdjieff that's alchemical. In fact, according to, we saw Jacob Needleman, who is a big Gurdjiefi, however they say that, and we were listening to his lecture, and I said, that sounds like alchemy. He said, it is. So I'm not deep enough in that system to know, so I shouldn't criticize it, but that's another one that's from the 20th century. But basically, it's Jung for the most part. It's the biggest tradition that we have that's alchemy, that the language is understandable to us, the philosophy is understandable to us, and now we have some 21st century additions. We can put internal family systems on it. We have some new understandings of the collective shadow, like Wetiko and things like that. So other things. So to me, when I look at the whole thing, to me, it's the Jungian thing is the greatest thing that we have. And so, of course, I would put that down, and that's the framework I kind of generally use. So I would put that down as sort of like the base code of any kind of group that I would do. Now, in this thing, with this online thing we're doing here, I just talk to you guys, because whoever wants to come in here, whatever your background is all just fine with me. And I'm not making you guys do anything. I always say, look into Jung, use AI to teach yourself about it. Start with Robert Johnson's book, Owning Your Own Shadow. I'm always saying these things. Look at my Jungian reading list. I'm always pushing Jung stuff. Robert Moore, I'm always pushing that on everybody. But I'm not, making it any kind of a thing. Whereas if I were to have a group, a physical group, I will actually say, hey, this is kind of what we're doing here. So at least start getting some basic education on this. Let me see what you guys are saying in here. And I'm happy that everyone's talking right now because today was going to be more improvisational. So, Sarah, that is true. They are just as lost. Oh, the red pill people. They are just as lost, them red pill people, some of them. They want to play the blame game, never look within, afraid of death, full of fear. I had this video. It was called 2 Paths for the Red Pilled Initiate. It's a good video. It's on Shadowtech Alchemy YouTube page. And it kind of says, once you've awakened to the reality of the shadow of evil, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to become the red-pilled culture warrior, I called it. So you're going to be all into the conspiracies and stopping the New World Order and all that. I was there. And but then, for some people, you will realize that that's just a mirror of what's going on inside of all of us. And now you have to turn the mirror around and find that thing out there in you. Whatever's the most blasphemous, the most nasty, the most triggering or addictive to you as a red pill culture warrior, you need to find that in its psychological equivalent inside of you and start working with that. And that's the psycho-spiritual alchemist. And then there's all these other things that come with being an alchemist. As above, so below, living in the movie, and all this other stuff that comes with doing that. It's not just shadow work. Being an alchemist is not just shadow work. That's kind of like the prerequisite, but it's not just that. I got tired of just beating my head against the wall, trying to get people, to do that, to turn the mirror, turn the lens around. As a song by Jules says, who will save out? I don't understand it. If we won't save ourselves. Yeah. You guys have to type better. That's a great song. Sarah recognizes it. She can read it. Of course, I love Dana. The obsession with some of these Stephanie says the obsession with some of these public figures shows that it's not about the public figure, would be so healing to alchemize that. The obsession with some of those public figures shows that it's not about... Well, an obsession with a public figure is either they're either acting as a scapegoat to dump your shadow stuff, or they're acting as an idol to dump your golden shadow. We idolize or demonize depending on what's being projected. We choose certain people to to dump our shadow stuff, that's, you know, it's going to be Bill Gates, it's going to be Donald Trump, it's going to be whoever it is, he's going to get my shadow. And then it's going to be this person or that person who's going to be my idol, who's going to get my golden shadow, which is my talents and my beauty and my everything that I have that's amazing, but that I don't know about myself because it's caught up in shame and fear and stuff. That's your golden shadow. And so that's down there. So you find other people, you find sports heroes or celebrities or models or whatever to hold your golden shadow for you. So we're definitely, that's what we use these outer figures for. Dana likes Jewel. I have no familiarity with her, Dana. But yeah, that's well. I'm glad that you're liking her and that you're playing her on acoustic guitar, because what can be better than that is physically playing the songs rather than just listening. What did I think of those? Oh my God, Dana, I'm so sorry. I did not see them. Because the reason is because the link was in my chat, and when okay, Dana, please send them to me to my email, okay? And I will listen to them and I will report back. My email is shadowtechalchemy@gmail.com. Send me the link to your Suno page through an email, and I will listen and I will tell you what I think. Absolutely. Sorry about that. Because I want to listen. I can't remember what the deal was. I got off the broadcast. I couldn't get the chat. I don't remember what it was. And then I was supposed to go back and get it, and I didn't. Dana says we could do workbooks or worksheets assigned to you or whatnot. I have homework and stuff to fill out and work on, but that would be cool. Virtual workshop, alchemy community. Yeah, you know, I'm hesitant to do that, because even in this format here, I suggest that people look at certain materials and start reading certain materials, and people don't. So I don't want to hinge a community onto any specific kind of a task. I just want to be encouraging that this is kind of the framework. Now, if I do an in-person meeting and people are coming to it, I think I can sort of insist on some level of people always reading a book, you know, because I really have to understand that there's a spectrum, that people are on a spectrum of how much they are willing to dedicate to studying anything and becoming an expert in anything. And I have to recognize where we're at in our own culture and our own attention spans, all of us, including me. And everybody's busy and trying to pay the bills and all that kind of stuff, modern life. So, but at the same time, there is a big trap, you guys. There's a big trap that comes with saying, you know I got issues, I got to work on myself, or I'm attracted to this or that person, that podcaster or that guru or whatever, but then I don't really do anything in my own world. I don't really learn to use the psychospiritual tools. I just kind of dabble. The spiritual seeker trap. It's huge. And most people are spiritual seekers. No, they're seekers. They're not alchemists, they're seekers. So there's just always seeking. And I have to, you know, and the reason why is because the stuff that you got to work on is uncomfortable to work on. And so those complexes, that shadow material, sort of scoots your attention away. And so, but nothing's going to change unless people learn to use some kind of system and apply it, and actually apply the system. So I kind of have to be very, very tolerant on one hand of everybody coming from a different approach and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I kind of have to continue to encourage people to start learning how to use the tools. I put all this stuff out for free but you don't have to do my stuff. So this is why I encourage people to do the Jungian stuff, because you got a whole tradition there. It's not me saying it. It's all these other amazing people saying it. And I just, and there's this whole, library of material that's out there. You don't even have to read Jung. You probably shouldn't read Jung. It's too hard. I wouldn't recommend people start getting into Jung by reading Jung. That will turn you off. That it just won't turn you off. You just won't be able to get through it. This is why I always recommend Robert Johnson and Robert Moore, Marion Woodman, because then you can get into it and you can learn about it without having to, be 200 IQ or whatever. But Dana says, sorry, who will save our souls if we won't save our own? That's what I'm saying right here. Your soul is your psyche, or you could say your soul is the self in the Jungian system. And who's gonna, you have to be the one to work out your stuff, every one of us. And we can do it together, we can support each other, but there has to be some kind of natural impetus that says, I'm going to heal myself. I'm going to work on myself. I'm going to evolve myself. There has to be that active. Now, even if you're on the Eastern path and it's not about active alchemy, it's transmutation, and it's more about liberation from ego scripts. There's still the discipline of the meditation, right? So even if you're on the Eastern path, which really is not very active, you have the meditation. And that takes real discipline. And so there's going to be some kind of sacrifice of time and energy, whether it's reading and applying and working with a partner or a therapist or whatever it is, or however you're doing it on the alchemical path, or it's going to be meditating on the Eastern path. But there's going to be some kind of sacrifice. There's going to be some putting down of the phone and all the other distractions and dedicating to what it is that you want to, where you want to develop. Because right now, this is all there is. All there is what we're doing right now. This is my best life that I got right now. My absolute best life that I could possibly have is happening right now. This is the best thing possible. There's nothing else possible. This is the absolute best. This is the best I can do. This is the best I can expect. There's nothing better than what's happening right now. And so it's not going to come in the future, and it isn't lost in the past. It's right now. Hello from I can't read that, but howdy to you too. Brian M. What's going on, Brian? Howdy to you. Also, the song lyric says, I'm starting with the man in the mirror. Yeah, exactly. So that's what you're starting with. That's exactly it. Sarah says it's easier to work with people in person. People can be flaky online. Yes, it's very true. The internet is fleeting. Yes. Where real life requires that one shows up somewhere, there is a heavier investment. Yes. Like I told you guys the last time, Sarah wasn't here, but I did this workshop. I advertised at a place that's a whole spiritual community there. Hundreds of people saw my flyer for Jungian shadow work. And the manager told me everyone's looking at that flyer. They're like entranced by it because they know they need it. And 6 people showed up, right? 2 of them I already knew, and then 4 new people. And then 1 guy couldn't hang, even though the way I was putting it out was very gentle, and because it just, He wasn't actually, he was invited by a friend. He didn't look at the flyer and said, yeah, I want to go to that. His friend said, come with me, and he dragged him with him. But so this is now, I was happy with 6 people because you can work with 6 people, so 5. But you can work with them, you can talk to them, you can work with their experiences, and so it's really good. It's intimate. It's really the greatest way to do things is with a small group like that. But the point is that out of hundreds of people, many hundreds of people probably saw that flyer, only 6 people showed up. And that's in person, and that's for the reason that Sarah was putting there, is because it says, okay, it's not the $25 I was charging. People spend hundreds of dollars on workshops. It was just the subject matter that people looked at it and and it wasn't scary. It was like esoteric and intriguing and stuff. But people looked at it and they're like, I need that, and then the complexes got active and they got distracted. They took a picture of it. They forgot about it, blah, blah, blah. I texted some people who said that they wanted to go and they're, I'm going to be out of town, or, whatever it was. So that's how this is. And so, so the people who show up in person are the ones who have the ability to commit to what it takes, at least the first level of what it takes to work on yourself. If you can't show up in person, then, you're not going to do the work. And you can show up on a Zoom call, although I might start doing Zoom calls, but you could show up on a Zoom call and that's not, going to mean anything either. So I don't mean to be pessimistic. I don't mean to be dark and pessimistic and cynical. I don't mean to be that. That's ugly and that's no fun. And I'm very aware that being cynical, being black-pilled about the level of human consciousness is not fun. And the whole thing of being an alchemist is not just about shadow work and looking at yucky stuff. It's not. Because I'm going to talk to you just now. Like right now, we're going to go into something else. And it's not just about that at all. It's some about that. That's like the core, most important stuff, kind of. But it's just not just about that. It's kind of like athletes, being an athlete, being in sports. Like how much of it is dedicated to training and working out and practice. And then there's the game, right? There's so much of this grunt work. Or being a musician, like, I'm a musician. It's like the touring and the van and sleeping in crappy motels and waiting just to play. And then you're on stage for 30 minutes or an hour or whatever it is. And then it's another, 18 hours of BS again. And it's just, we call it hurry up and wait. In music world, it's called hurry up and wait. You're hurrying up to get to the next gig and everything preparing and getting everything. And then you have to sit around and wait for 6 or 8 hours while the club opens and the whole thing happens and all that. So yeah, this is just life. This is how it is. But it's the same thing with doing this inner work. There's a certain amount of practice and sacrifice that comes with doing this. And back to my idea of the Solutio group where you have peers and stuff, this is good because it's going to help people to, have a partner and people that can, kind of like how they do in AA, how they have sponsors and who can kind of hold you accountable and check in with you. We need that. And so checking out says, you know what? Okay, I'm going to look at my notes to see what is everybody's name. And what I don't have checking out listed there. I don't remember what checking out's name was. Oh, checking out is Colin. Here we go. Checking out is, I see I'm writing down my namesake. Here goes Colin, the beekeeper. And I remembered that because I remembered your little logo was green. Yeah, brother. So, what's up? All right, now, Stephanie, it's like recovery versus, I like that. Recovery versus discovery. Discovery is just researching and learning. Recovery is applying it, alchemizing, and healing. Yeah, definitely. Theo, what's up, Theo? I know Theo. I have you on my list. I don't even need to, because you have your name in your handle. Sarah says you would come to the Zoom calls. Yeah. Me and Melissa, we did Zoom calls. There was always 5. It was Stephanie. It was always Stephanie and Scott. Sometimes Sarah came, and it would be me and Melissa, and then maybe one other person would rotate in. But because everybody was the same all the time, then it felt like there needed to be more people. It didn't have to be a lot of people, but it had to be more people rotating in. And a lot of times it wasn't anybody new. And so, I love my friends and stuff, but I want the show to reach people and stuff. So, Dana says, I get that, but you could do Zoom class or whatnot, so the people like me from halfway across the country or whatever could attend. Yes. I've had some ups and downs with doing internet workshops and Zoom calls. Definitely. And so I'm hesitant. And now that I have a space, this Casa de Luz community down here in Austin, I'm kind of more concentrating on working that angle right now. But I might have to do that. In fact, what I might do, I was thinking, is I could have, I could broadcast the live meetings. So I could do a live meeting and then I could broadcast it. I learned that from this guy, Brandon Adams. So long time ago, he would broadcast his meetings through what was called TalkShoe at the time, an old conference call system. And then he would have his whole thing, his whole presentation, and then he would say, let's go to anybody that's on the call. And then he would unmute people and let them talk, and their voice would come through the PA system. He hooked it up. I have that audio background, so I can do that. And so that's another way too. The Zoom call. What I would need to see probably is I would probably need to see, to do the Zoom call, I would need to see some, and then the timing is difficult. It's probably better for me to do just kind of broadcast the in-person thing, and then do this, and then do workshops from time to time, like a few times a year. Do a workshop where you could attend that workshop on that one day, rather than depending on people continually showing up online in different time zones and all that kind of stuff. Now here local, I know everybody's on the same time zone, everybody lives in the same place and all that, we could pull that off. But it's all, I'm thinking about it all. It's all, for right now we're still doing this, but I am moving in that direction. And Dana said, finally, I sent that right as you mentioned Zoom. That's the format that Wellness in the Woods works. The organization. Oh, you guys use Zoom. Yeah, I pay for Zoom too. I've been using Zoom for years. So definitely I would use Zoom for sure. And a lot of people who are in this kind of community use Zoom. Okay, so guys, thank you for commenting, and please feel free to keep doing that, because like I said, we're kind of improvising here tonight. But let me see what Theo says, and then I'll go back to what we're talking about here, our main theme. And I know people that probably listen to this later, they're like, oh man, these guys are just, where's the attention span? But it's just, tonight we're kind of bopping around. You know how I am. I usually do the first hour. It's just like, lecture. But Theo says, done some good shadow work, art, and self-education with Robert Moore lectures this week and feel much more awake. Also some crying. Fantastic. This guy is so amazing, Theo. He is on it, and he is studying, and he is applying himself, and he's learning, and he's becoming a Jungian, and he's going to be probably a therapist, a coach, some kind of a person that's going to be helping people. And so that's, I very much encourage him. And okay, so where are we? So now I'm saying here, what's the purpose of this whole thing? The thing is, okay, we're established already that everybody that would listen to this is an alchemist at some spectrum, some level or some place in the spectrum. And they are, have an interior life. They have some kind of stuff that they need to heal. They have some kind of inclination towards evolving themselves. And so anybody that's on that path, that's who I'm talking to here. We're the ones that have to figure out, everybody's gonna have to figure out kind of what to do as modernity crashes, because modernity is crashing in real time very quickly right in front of our eyes. Okay? Everybody knows that. It's very interesting that how rapidly this particular civilization is moving, and because of technology and all of this, and it ascended very rapidly, and now it's crashing very rapidly. And I'm not saying it's going into Armageddon, but I'm saying it's having a dark night of the soul. It's moving into a dark night of the soul. It's moving into some kind of a recovery period is going to be necessary. And everybody's trying to hold on, and everybody's trying to figure out what's going on, and most people haven't been looking inwards, and most people don't know what in the world is going on at all. They're just waking up in the morning to their phone and going to work at the job they don't like, and they're just spending all their time at work, or then they go to the grocery store, and then maybe they do something on the weekends, and then they repeat. And they watch some movies or whatever it is that they do to entertain themselves, drink some alcohol and whatever. And that's their basic worker bee lifestyle. And then there's the people who actually feel who are doing something better than that. They have their own business, they like their job, they are inspired by their work, but they're very busy because it takes a lot of work and a lot of busyness to pay all the bills and everything of the modern debt society. So they're invigorated enough. They feel that their life is meaningful enough, and and maybe they have church, or they have some other kind of community, or whatever, but they're still very much nose to the grindstone and very busy, and don't really have all kinds of time for nature walks and sitting with books and having long 3-4 hour conversations with people about inner work and what I've been working on, or anima, animus projection, or whatever we talk about and stuff. That's not where they're at. They don't have the time and the space for that. Or they're raising children, and obviously that's one of the greatest things you could possibly do with your life. But again, that really does cut into your time. So you've got to figure out how to craft your life in such a way so that you can have an inner life, so that you can wake up, grow up, heal up, and so that you can evolve your consciousness. And you have to put some will and some focus into that. And you don't have to know exactly what you don't have to know exactly what you need to do, but you have to know exactly what you don't need to do and don't want to do. So basically you have to be willing to sacrifice all kinds of things so that you can have the time and the space and perspective and environment so that you can do this, right? And you can still raise children and do this. You can still have a job and do this. You can still go to school and do this. You can still do all that. But you just have to you have to be an artist about it. And I know what it's like being an artist. And Melissa was the same way. Melissa was just the same way. The number one thing in life is your art. There's nothing more important than that. Now, we didn't have children, so we kind of had that kind of privilege in a way. So if you have children, the number one thing in your life is your child, and then the second most important thing is your art, or your life art, or your inner work, whichever. But the inner work, the life art is not number 4. It's right there on top. And so you have to basically, you have to make various choices and stuff. And a lot of what's going to happen when you do this is that you're going to choose prescriptions for life that are completely different from what your family and friends and what the rest of your neighbors and everybody else is doing. And you're going to look out at them and you're going to think, what in the world is wrong with me? They're the normal ones, and I'm over here as some kind of recluse or some kind of black sheep or some kind of orphan or some kind of hermit, or what in the world am I? Because they're normal, I'm not. And so then if they ever interface with you, they're going to be like, oh, so what do you do? And you're going to be like, can't even tell you, can't even tell you what I do. Can't even say, because I'm just, you have to kind of figure out, it's called the persona, right? You got to figure out how to have a mask, how to have a persona where you can kind of say to somebody, this is what I do and this is what I'm all about. And it takes a while sometimes to be able to state what, when you state to somebody else what you are, what you do, like in America, they love asking, so what do you do? You meet somebody. In Europe, it's a lot better. It's more like, hi, so what are your interests? They will ask you. In America, it's all, what do you do? In other words, what's your job? And where do you fit where are you on the monkey ladder, on the monkey branch? And they want to know, where are you in your status and where are you in society? It's very superficial. And so you have to have some kind of calling card, some kind of business card that says, not literally, but some kind of persona script that you say, this is who I am, this is what I do. And if you're on this path like we are, you pretty much have to kind of put something that they would understand on top. So for example, I just, if I'm, depending on who I'm talking to, I'll say I'm a musician, right? And then that is, what I like about saying I'm a musician is that, especially because my age, I'm in my 50s, and I say I'm a musician, and they're like, the average American kind of doesn't compute that much, or there's some kind of double take, because they're like, okay, well, he's old enough so he must be like a professional musician or something like that. So that kind of sounds cool. If you're younger and you say you're a musician, then they think, well, that's not going to last. You're going to have to go to college. You're going to have to get a job, blah, blah, blah. But so musician works in a way, and then I kind of like how it kind of makes them guess or whatever. To really throw them off more, I say I'm an artist. And then they're like, now in Europe that works, no problem. And probably all over the world that works. But back to America, you're an artist? Well, what? You mean? And then they think, oh, you're a painter? They think artist means painter. And, but then and I don't usually say I'm an alchemist. I don't usually say that. That's not what I say. I say I'm a musician, and if they ask even more, I'm like, well, yes, I'm a professional musician, I tour, but then I also am an audio engineer and a producer, and I work on other people's music. And so that kind of all goes together in one package. It's like musician, producer, engineer, that kind of fits with artist. They can picture that whole thing. I put that in front. That's my persona. Even though that itself is somewhat esoteric, it's still much more understandable and known than if you say alchemist or something like that. They have no idea what that is. And, even if you say to a Jungian, I'm an alchemist, they think, what is that? So you have to and then you have to get used to, basically, without grandstanding on it and being like, I'm a rebel and I love to tell people, like, it would be like, what if you went around telling people you were a Satanist? That would just be for getting kicks, right? Even if you were, you wouldn't tell people that. The only reason anyone would ever say that is just to get a rise. We're not saying we're alchemists, or we're not doing this so that we can get a rise out of people. We're just doing it. We want to interface with society in a way that they understand. And so you're going to have a persona that's, it's like Dana. She's got, I can't remember what she's calling herself. She's some kind of a, what are you? You're like a some kind of a nurse, or in some kind of a nursing type role, or were you? Sorry, Dana. You're working. You're a more like social worker, right? Social worker. That's what you are, right? Tell me on the chat. So that's accepted. People understand that. They understand that. So you use that as your external persona, and then for the people that you get deeper with, you can say, you have to have some kind of term to explain what we do. Because the person who works on themselves, who evolves their consciousness, who studies themselves, there's not really a term for that, a well-accepted term. It isn't a persona script or a career or anything like that. So that's why I use alchemist, because this is a psychospiritual path. You could also say to people who you think might understand it, if you are doing the Jungian thing, you could say, well, I'm a lay Jungian psychologist. Because anyone that is studying Jungian psychology who doesn't have a degree, you are a lay Jungian psychologist. So you could always say that. That will kind of make them trip out. So you have to kind of find a way to fit in when you need to fit in, and then you have to find a way to feel good about who you are and what your persona is, what your mask is and stuff. And then you need to pursue that inner path, that life art path. Artists have to do this, but most artists, have something external to do. They have to figure out how to be confident in themselves. And when it's like, I talk to my mom or my dad about this. My mom kind of understands it better, but there's still a lot of cognitive dissonance. And she's still wondering, it's like, she's still thinking, when am I going to get a job? She's still thinking, when am I going to get a job? I've been out of the house for 35 years, like being a musician and touring and producing bands, and then doing all this stuff with Melissa and all this psychology and coaching people and all of this. And all that is like, what is that? So even though I could sit there and talk to her and say, look, this is what this is, and she likes all that stuff. And my mom was reading Carlos Castaneda and Jane Roberts and all that kind of stuff when she was in her 20s. So she understands metaphysics and that kind of stuff, but there's a part of her, this boomer part of her, that's like, that doesn't compute with how the world works. Where's your retirement fund? I don't have one. What are you going to do when you get old? I don't know. I'm going to figure it out. What did people do for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years before there were retirement funds? What did they do? My mom would be like, I don't know. Well, they had extended families. They had homesteads and extended families. So when you're younger, you take care of the grandparents, and then when you're a grandparent, then your grandchildren take care of you, and the family is more integrated, and so there's more stability, and we're screwed in that way. And so this is actually another good reason why we need to start getting together and start forming community and stuff, because all of us, we're going to be old sometime, not too far from now. And so we're going to have to, we're going to stay healthy, but we're still. So, but we lay it on faith. When we're on this path, we lay the whole thing on faith. We lay the whole thing on the big S self. We lay the whole thing on faith, and we say, I'm doing my part. I'm doing the psychospiritual work. I'm cleaning up. I'm cleaning out. I'm healing. I'm waking up. I'm watching the movie of life. I'm using my intuition. I'm doing everything that I have to do on the inner path. I'm rescinding my shadow. I'm doing my shadow work. I'm doing everything I can on the inner path, and I have faith that things will work out for me. That's how we live. We live on faith. We live on faith. We sacrifice the material stuff. We come up with some kind of way of interfacing with the society that is more of superficial, and then we have our deeper life that we do with the people who are closer to us, who are on the same path as us. So that's how we do it. And we're outsiders. But we're the ones, guys, we're the ones who are actually, I don't know how the universe works. I don't know how the architect of all this works. But I'm pretty sure that what's going on in the psyches of individuals is being fed back into the master AI, which is learning. This thing is way too advanced to not be learning from what's going on inside the psyches of individuals. Of course it's reading that. Of course this system is studying all the micro laboratories of every individual. And then it's evolving because at least some individuals are taking it upon themselves, because there's always people who are learning. They're either learning from mistakes, right? Which a lot of people learn. I mean, we all learn that way. And then they're also learning from active attention onto their inner states and getting higher and higher levels of consciousness so that they can see from higher and higher perspectives. And that, what you're learning, that higher perspective view that you're able to see as you raise your consciousness through doing this work, gets fed back into the architect. Of course it does. So if you're on a path of personal evolution, and that's what you're committed to, you are working on the project of human evolution. What's more important than that? Is there anything more important than that? No, there's nothing more important than that. So us outsiders, we don't know how to fit into the society. And I have to say I'm this, and I have to sacrifice normal stuff and figure out how to kind of do well on the edge of the matrix and stuff like that. We're the ones. We're the alchemists in the laboratory that are figuring out what the system needs to evolve human consciousness. That's our project. That's what we do. So the other people, they can't understand this. And they don't need to. Just talk to the other people who do understand this. Get competent at this yourself so that you're assured. You hear how I talk. I'm absolutely confident 100% that I know what I'm doing, and I know what this is all about, and I know why I'm sacrificing materialism and all of this and everything else for this. I'm completely committed to this like a religious zealot, basically. And so the more you do this, the more you tune in, then the more you realize this is it. This is the shit. This is life. This is the highest level of life we can have. Now, there's other ways to have very high level life, but becoming the highest level watcher, this is very high fidelity life. Let's see what you guys have been saying. Sarah says that big changes are happening and are on the way, that you can feel it. Well, I don't know what big changes. I've been saying and hearing and thinking that for as long as I've been kind of semi-awake. And sometimes things move very fast, and sometimes things move very slow, and a lot slower than you think they are, but I just stay on the path, and I let it show me I let the movie of life show me where I need to be. And I'm in the movie. I'm just watching the movie of life, and I'm making myth out of my own life. I'm making art out of my own life. I'm aware of my life as a projection, and I'm out here watching it. I'm not falling into the projection. I can fall into it, but I try to stay out enough to where I'm watching my life and going, wow, look at the mythology. Look at the scripting. Look at the archetypal patterning in my own life. I'm applying symbolic literacy to my own life and going, wow, look at the myth of my life. And then I'm making art out of that myth. That's being a life artist. So I just do that. And then whatever happens with the rest of the world is what nature's doing. Can't just do what I'm doing, and that's all I can do. Dana says you've been regular recording your dreams last couple of weeks. Excellent. And you've been noticing reoccurring themes. Yes. Keep going with the dreams, the dream journaling. Absolutely. You're going to have a dream journal for the rest of your life. It's very important. I've been doing it through audio recording. I'm going to tell you guys something here in just a second too. I've been doing it through audio recording since we have AI now. So I record on my phone, on my iPhone, on my voice messages, and then I start I talk into the phone, I record the dream. Then when I name the file, I name it dream, and then plus something else. And so then when I sort them, after I back up everything onto a hard drive and then I sort them, all the dreams are in order, and I can sort them by the date they were created. Then, if I want to, I can, right now it's a little bit of a trouble. I have to kind of upload them I've been using Evernote to transcribe everything. But at some point soon, I'll be able to batch transcribe hundreds of audio files. I mean, I'm sure I can already do it if I want to pay for that, but I'll be able to do that on my own computer soon. So I'll just start batch transcribing all my audio dream journals, and that's how I kind of been doing it lately. I'm going to read through these, and I'm going to tell you guys some stuff that I wanted to tell you. And Brian says, I find it remarkable the amount of similarities and differences between Eastern and Western meditations and spiritual alchemy. Both Celtic, Gaelic, and Taoist traditions use three metaphoric cauldrons and energies. You mean three, like Negrito, Albedo, Rubedo, or... Of course, there are similarities between all these traditions. And, you can go to Joseph Campbell, for example. It's kind of like the mainstream, semi-mainstream guy that will kind of show you about the similarities, the archetypal similarities between all cultures and traditions, spiritual traditions and everything. And I was explaining this in that paper. There's a paper on inner alchemy and the I can't remember what I called it. It's called Alchemy and the Evolution of Shadow Work. It's on the papers page on my website, shadowtechalchemy.com. And it kind of goes over some different spiritual traditions and how they approach the shadow. I talked about this earlier tonight. And but it's only the alchemical tradition that really works with the shadow and transmutes it. But regardless of the particular, wherever it is in the world, it always does that. There's the idea of the perennial philosophy, which is sort of the idea that there is a basic archetypal spiritual profile that is at the base of all religions and spiritual systems. So yes, definitely there's similarities. But the West is generally more active, and the East is generally more passive. More collectivist and passive over there on the East, and more active and masculine in the West. Oh, you're welcome. Whoever said the gratitude to you. You're very welcome, and see you next time. And Sarah, you forgot the weather report where you're at from. Weather report? I don't know about that. I don't know what that is. You mean the jazz fusion band weather report? Peer support. Oh, peer support specialist, kind of like a counselor, right? So that's kind of like in the social worker kind of tradition, right? I'm also an outreach associate because I also educate people about peer support and supportive resource. Yeah, you're a social worker, Dana. That's what that is, right? Tell me if I'm wrong. There were no Sarah Cross, there were no retirement funds for the majority of human history, no. But like I said, there were extended families. And so we just like ship our old folks off to convalescent homes or whatever. That won't be me. Livestock was as good as gold. Yes, definitely. Yes, we need to establish a soul tribe. We're in it right now. If I feel absolute kinship with Jung and the original Jungians and all the Jungian badasses, I feel absolute kinship with them. They're the soul tribe to me. And the alchemists and the hermeticists, I feel, all of that. But when I look around to the world today and I say, where are they? There are not a lot of people who are really like on the cutting edge and updating their mindset and stuff. They're kind of stuck kind of because this is about evolving yourself. This isn't about studying some dude's thing and then trying to force your life into some dude's thing. This is about saying, thanks for showing me the map. I'm going to try it on for size, and then I'm going to adapt it and adapt it and modify it to where it works for me. That's what this is about. That Carl Jung didn't give us his whole system so that we could copy him. And there's that famous quote. He said he's glad he's not a Jungian. He showed us what he was doing. And he did speak in positive terms like this is it, this is that, and everything. But basically he said, this is just what I did. Take it or leave it. And so, but we can use that as our base. It's very sophisticated, and it is the alchemical tradition recapitulated into the 20th century. So it's gold to us. But we're not just stuck in that box. We're supposed to be pushing the limits of that and figuring out our own alchemical philosophy of life for ourselves. The Hebrews, I guess, used to use eggs and butter to pay landlords. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, that's the old world, of course. Yeah, it was a lot more barter. Retirement funds were familial wealth, art, books, assets, the land and animals, gold and silver collected. That's how, exactly right. It wasn't anything to do with paper money. No, I know. Different kind of ecosystem, different kind of social ecosystem 100 years ago, 200, 300 years ago. And people didn't even live as long either. 3 treasures. Jing essence, chi, chi breath, and shen spirit, right? In Taoism, right? Cauldron of warming. Sorry, I can barely read the text. It's so small in my chat. But yes, those. Thank you for putting that all in there. Yeah, that's the you're explaining the whole Taoist thing. It's funny because I met a guy recently who started sending me Taoist literature so that I could start looking at it, and I want to, but and I've I've read the Tao Te Ching. That's the only Taoism that I really have knowledge of. My dad was a Zen Buddhist for about a decade or something like that, so I have some kind of background in that. But I really don't know a whole lot about the Chinese. I've used the I Ching plenty, and that's about the extent of my understanding of any Chinese spirituality. I don't have that title, Colin, because I didn't go to college and I work for non-profit. It doesn't matter. Social worker. I'm going to look up the word social worker right there. Right now, I'm going to tell you what it doesn't mean you went to college. Wiki. Let's see what it is. Social work is they say it's an academic discipline. Oh, you're right, huh? And practice-oriented profession concerned with meeting the basic needs. Academic discipline and practice-based profession. That's where you're at. Concerned with meeting the basic needs of individuals, families, groups, communities, and society as a whole to enhance their individual and collective well-being. Social work practice draws from liberal arts, social science, and interdisciplinary areas such as psychology, sociology, health, political science, community development, law, and economics to engage with systems and policies, conduct assessments, develop interventions, and enhance social functioning and responsibility. The ultimate goals of social work include the improvement of people's lives, alleviation of biopsychosocial concerns, empowerment of individuals and communities, and the achievement of social reform. Right? Tell me if you resonate with that. That's social work. I know that these jerk-offs in the professional world try to monopolize titles. Basically a kind of mental health practitioner therapist with no degree, but I have life experience as far as being a person who has lived through many mental health hospitalizations, etc. Yeah, I think the word social worker is a very generic term that applies to pretty much anybody under that umbrella. But it could be something you could say to people who might know. It could be a term to use to explain to people so they can understand what you do. Because the reason why I forgot is because the description is complex. So I know what it's like to have a complex persona. All right, so where are we, everybody? We've had a good conversation tonight. 9:53. And I wanted to tell you something, though. Because we were talking about the Solutio thing. Look up mental health certified peer support. Oh, can you please give me something that's easier to think to say and remember than that? They have usurped all these fields. Social workers didn't used to have to be a degree. See, Sarah? See, I can remember social worker. I cannot remember mental health certified peer support specialist. I can't understand that. I don't know what that means. And you explained it to me, and I know what you're doing. You've explained what you actually do. But if you told me that title, I wouldn't know what to do with that. I don't. But you're not a social worker. But if you said you are a mental health specialist, I would know what that is. I would be able to understand that. Certified peer support, I don't know what that is, though. But mental health specialist, I know what that is. I can understand that. Okay, so look, if you're wondering, so I'm always throwing it on everybody. Okay, read Jung, read my stuff, start doing your shadow work, open this book, that book. I'm always here's a summation. This is not the whole of the work, but here's a summation. There's a summation of kind of the basic practice that we're doing through this lens, through this alchemical lens. And it is for right now, kind of came up with this, and to try to clarify things. Notice it, name it, process it, document it. Notice it, name it, process it, document it. So when something comes up in your consciousness that is interesting, that is numinous, let's say, in other words, energetic in any way, whether it's energetic because it's on it's ego inflation and it's like, oh my God, I'm so great, or wow, this idea I have is so amazing. It could be that, but more often what we're talking about here is shadow work, and so it's some self-deprecating thought or some judgment of another person, or a fear, something obsessive compulsive that comes back, whatever it is that shows up that you don't know the source of it and it's disrupting your equilibrium. Notice it. That's the first thing. Notice it, put your eye on it, right? And hold it and go, okay, got you. What is that? What is that? Instead of going, oh God, that thing again, okay, and then just distracting away from it or whatever, you notice it and then you name it. What is that? Name it. And this is where these psychological maps come in. This is where some kind of knowledge, whether we're using internal family systems or we're calling it a complex and it's got different archetypal inputs, or whatever we're calling it, an inner child part or whatever we're calling it. We need to have some kind of topological map for how we actually categorize the material that shows up in our psyches. So we notice it and then we name it. I like the internal family systems, but you can use anything you want. Anything you want, it doesn't matter. Use any kind of naming that you want. You go, oh, that script. I just call them scripts sometimes. It's a certain script, right? So that script's running again. What is it saying? What is that script actually saying? It's saying, oh, something bad might happen. Oh my God, something bad might happen, blah, blah, blah. Or it's saying, oh, that person is really bugging me, or what they said was really offensive. Or it could be feeling oriented. This feeling, I feel this way, this feeling, this anger, this grief, this guilt, this shame, whatever it is. Name the thing that's showing up, that's disrupting your psyche. Name it, give it a name, say, what is it? You're either going to name it because you're going to name it like a part. That's going to be like, like I often use Melissa's examples a lot, Mad Girl, for example. Okay, that's Mad Girl. You're going to give it a name like that, like a personified name, or you're going to say, that's anger. You're naming it, you're pinning it down, right? And then you can, once you've named it, you can trace it down. It's actually not in my name it, trace it. That's what you got to do next. Trace it down. If it's a thought, trace it down to the feeling level. If it's a feeling, trace it up to the thoughts. Trace it back in time. When was the last time you felt that? Is this something you've recognized before? Is this a common theme? Is this a common script that keeps on running? Do you remember it back to your childhood? Does your parents have it? Trace it back. Try to do a little investigation onto that disruptive thought or feeling and trace it back. As far as you can go, whatever. Do some work on tracing it back. Then go sit and process the energy behind it. Stand and do it, sit and do it, whatever. But if it's energy, let it move through you. Instead of acting out, instead of going and displacing it, sit with it or just allow it to be and Let it move through your body. Let it dissipate. Let it percolate up and dissipate out. And the mind will be like, oh, it'll be trying to hook into something external and I need to do something, and that bad person out there or whatever it is, just stay with it. That's a projection. That's a movie. That's not what's going on. This is the projector. What's going on inside here, this is the film. This is the film. The film is running. The film is made out of scripting. That's what we're interested in. We're interested in the film that's running and the scripting that's in the film, in the emulsion. The emulsion is the emotion and the thoughts. That's what we're interested in. We're not interested in what the projection is. We're not interested in what the script is saying about the outside world. The script is saying that person's bad, or it's envisioning a future. It's making some kind of projection. That's not what we're interested in. We're interested in the source material, right? So we're tracing it back, we're processing it. We're allowing the source material, we're allowing the energy of it to move and to metabolize until it kind of expends itself. 5 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it is, whatever you have time for, whatever you can do. And then we document the process, right? That's why I kind of recommend people do it with their phone. And I'm gonna tell you how I do my documentate. I'm documenting all day long. But so I use Apple iPhone, and there's the two apps I use are the built-in apps. One is called Notes, and the other one is called Voice Memos. That's the audio recording one. So in my Notes, it allows you to have folders. And so I have folders for journal, dream journal, all the different creative work that I do and everything. I have folders for everything. So I just, keep notes in folders, and then I either type into it or I use the little audio, the little microphone button on there, and I talk into the phone if I can, if I'm not in public or something, and I document what just happened. What did I find? What was it? What did I do with it? How did it come about? And I document the whole kind of context of how this thought or this feeling or occurrence, social occurrence, a complex got active, you had an argument, something like that happened, or you had a little scare of some kind, something like that happened. You document the whole thing. And so, or you speak it into your voice memos or whatever you have, and then you give it a name that describes it. And then you store those things, you save those, you back those up from time to time, or you on the cloud, or however you're going to do it. And so you have some kind of a way of documenting, because we're scientists to some degree. An alchemist is a spiritual, scientific artist, right? That's what an alchemist is. It's a spiritual, scientific artist. And so the scientific part, the science part of it, requires documenting and keeping notes on our progress and all of that. And then now with AI, we can transcribe all this stuff later, and we can do stuff with it. We can make summaries of it and make conclusions and stuff later. But anyway, or we could talk about it with our peers, right? Like earlier we were talking about peers. So we can talk about it. So that's how we do it. So we notice these disruptive, good or bad, it's often bad, disruptive material. We name it, we give it a name. We use whatever knowledge we have, whatever psychological knowledge we have to name it. And if you don't have any psychological knowledge, we just name it with what does it feel like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? And then we trace it back to wherever it'll go and try to correlate it. And then we process it. Instead of distracting or projecting, we process the energy, and then we document what we just did. I just added tracing in because that wasn't obvious in there. So notice it, name it, trace it, process it, document it. Maybe there's an acronym I can. NNTPD. No, that's not so good. That could get cleaned up, and it could get. But anyway, that's basically what you're doing with your stuff all the time. That's basically what you're doing with your inner state all the time. When you're doing shadow work, when you're doing inner alchemy, you're noticing the things, you're naming them, you're tracing them back, you're processing the emotional energy, and then you're documenting what you did. And then you do that over time, and you learn what your inner family, what your inner ecosystem is made out of, and you relate to it that way. So you're relating to, let me write this down for myself here. This is integration. You're integrating, you're relating, you're metabolizing material, energy, parts, whatever you want to call them, scripts, however we want to call our material. And so that's what we're doing. That's our practice, basically. That's basically what we're doing. And then in relationship, we did the same thing in relationship. And I just talked, was it last week or the week before? There's on the live tab, there's the old shows. And one of them is called the alchemical relationship. I think it was last week. The show from last week, pretty sure. And so I went over in the first hour or whatever, I went over the alchemical relationship last week or the week before. And so we're doing it in the relationship. That's what we're doing. That's the actual kind of basic moment-to-moment, day-to-day work. And we're just staying aware. Now, I also was going to talk about doing this through we kind of, remember the title of this thing? What was the title today? It was Living Whole in the Modern World. That was the title. And we approached that a little bit. We talked about a lot of other stuff. But my basic kind of prescription is that as an alchemist, as a psychospiritual evolver, so to speak, we have to basically, you can do this anywhere, but you can do it in any environment. I mean, there's people in India that are living in Bombay, and it's just traffic everywhere, and they're up in their little apartment meditating or whatever. So, but generally, I'd say the more access you have to nature, the better. The more nature time you have, the better. The more quiet time you have, the better. So you basically don't want to have credit card debt. You don't want to have big old mortgages and all that kind of stuff. You don't want to be trying to keep up with the Joneses. That life is that's not what we do. This is the life of a mystic, of a sage, of a shaman, of an alchemist. This is not that life. This is not busy life out there. And even if you have a small family or whatever, you can still do it. But this is not that life. So you have to basically kind of carve it out and go, okay. And when people talk to me and they're like, oh my God, I'm so caught up in all this matrix stuff and I don't know my way out of it and stuff. I used to coach people on foreclosure and bankruptcy. That was when I first got into coaching, was people in foreclosure and bankruptcy. Don't ask me how I got into that field. It was its own journey. But, and I would talk to people and be like, just declare bankruptcy. It's wonderful. Thank God for bankruptcy. Just get rid of all that stuff. I mean, get rid of all your unsecured debt. And you can still keep a car and, you just, that's easy. And then they say, but then it'll ruin my credit score. That's your matrix debtor score. So when you decide to go for bankruptcy, you're walking away from that. You're not going to use credit anymore. You're going to use a debit card if you're going to use something like that. And that's going to be it. And you're going to spend the amount of money that you have, like any normal, sane person would. And so you get all that unsecured debt off. And if you're in a house or some other property that you just absolutely can't afford because everything fell apart and you can't afford that, you let that go. Bye-bye. You let that go. And then you live a more austere life, right? And then if that means that you have to move out of the location that you're in, well, then you're going to move into a cheaper state or a cheaper country or a cheaper place to live. And you're going to make some sacrifices, and there's going to be a little bit of guessing as to how am I going to make it work for a while, and then you're going to figure it out because you're resourceful and you're going to figure it out. And you're going to get out of that yucky environment, and you're going to get yourself set up in a nice, calmer environment, and you're going to get all your debts down to as little as they can be. And then you're going to then you're going to work in some place or way that you may or may not like at first, and then you'll figure out how to do something better. And you just actively move your life into a place of more calm, less matrix responsibility, and more simplicity, more quiet time, more time to do the work. And it might be more out in the country or whatever it is, whatever you can do. And you actively curate your life in that direction. Now, that's what we call the lower right-hand quadrant in integral theory. That's your actual footprint. Your upper right-hand quadrant is your body part, and that's where you're eating clean, and you're working out and doing yoga or whatever you're doing, and you're taking care of yourself physically. And you need that time because you need a simpler lifestyle so that you can do all that kind of stuff. You need time. You can't have a life that's so busy you can't even make it to the gym. That's ridiculous. So your upper right-hand quadrant is paying attention to what you're eating, what you're drinking, clean, and I don't even drink tap water whatsoever. I buy gallons of Crystal Geyser for $1.50 each from the grocery store. That's what I drink. I don't even drink anything out of and I got a filter on my shower, and they don't have fluoride in the water here where I live, luckily. But I used to have fluoride filters. And then, I'm not putting anything in my body there's nothing, I'm not putting any ingredient, anything that's yucky. Nothing, ever. I'm eating organic food and all that stuff. So that's the upper right-hand quadrant, and you're just taking care of your body. And there's more to all of these. There's more depth on all of these, but I'm not going to go through that all. The upper left-hand quadrant is what we're talking about all day long here. We're talking about all this, what I just said about the, notice it, name it, trace it, process it, document it. That's our inner work practice. That's a simplification of it, but that's the upper left-hand quadrant. And then the lower left-hand quadrant is our relationships and our relationship to culture, right? Our relationship to culture. So what are we eating culturally? And what are we putting into the culture? What are we putting into the culture, and what are we pulling out of the culture? And at the lower level, what are we pulling out of the family or our community? What are we putting into the community? What are we pulling out in terms of values, attitudes? The lower left-hand quadrant is the actual scripting of society. And are we looking at that? It's like we were talking about earlier about red pill stuff. When all you're doing is looking at red pill stuff, that's the lower left-hand quadrant. That's cultural scripting. And that's all shadow material. So you're basically just observing the shadow of mankind. And you're just letting that kind of filter through all the time. And I would say you need that as some kind of inoculation. You need to know this shadow stuff is happening. You need to have some grasp of it. You have to be somewhat immune to that. You have to develop some kind of immunity to that. But you can't become addicted to that. That's cultural food. So what you should be doing instead is, if you're looking at shadow, stop looking at his and her shadow and start looking at your shadow. That's where the big leap happens. So that's what we're doing here. And you can look at it like if you look at my integral theory or my integral shadow paper, I have on all 4 of those quadrants, those Wilbur quadrants, I got shadow work specifically through those. But today I was talking about lifestyle and like how to live whole in the modern world. And basically the answer is you have to live more like the old school world, right? And for some people, there is more like farming and ranching, and it is more about working with nature and all of that. And that works for some people. That's good. Some people, that isn't really their thing. But it is going to be living more simply, living a more natural life, having more time, and sacrificing the material stuff, and sacrificing what friends and family think about you. Right. So that's kind of where I would I welcome people's comments on that too, but that's basically how I would approach that. So guys, it's 10:16 and I'm going to see if you guys have any comments, and then we're going to take off for tonight. And it was a good one. It was more scattered tonight. It wasn't that organized. We kind of went back and forth through things, through my notes, and talked to you guys about a whole bunch of stuff. And we had a little bit of community talk on the chat, which is great. And now I gotta see, on these Tuesdays, I don't eat dinner until after the show. And I gotta go in there and cook. And then not something huge, but something. And then we'll be back, and I will try to do more of a solid subject like I usually do next week. And of course, everybody's welcome. You're all like Dana. You're gonna send me your music, shadowtechalchemy@gmail.com. And anybody can send me any message they want to. If you want to give me some ideas about what you need to work with, or what you want to hear me talk about, you can do that in, or put it into the comments or whatever. There's a lot of ways to get in touch with me. shadowtechalchemy.com. So that's good. So I think I'm going to wait to see if you guys say goodbye. And a simpler life is a frugal life, but doesn't mean it's, listen, I've been living a simple but frugal life for a long time. I have a car now, but when I was in California for several years, I didn't even have a car. My work and my living situation were the same place. And I sublet out some of my space so that I had tenants that were paying some of my rent. And good night, Sarah. Thanks for coming over. And I rode a 10-speed bicycle because I just got so sick of the because I was living pretty frugally at the time, and it was just one car problem after the next, and I was just like, I'm done with cars. I just got a bicycle. And I've spent a lot of time in Europe and stuff, and a lot of especially in Holland. It's kind of like it's kind of my European home base, and they're all riding bicycles. I know people don't even own cars; they just ride bicycles. And Stephanie was still hanging out. Hi, Stephanie. Bye, Stephanie. Thank you. Thanks for hanging out with me tonight and chiming in. So I don't care. I don't care about stuff. This is not a path for people who care about stuff. I mean, there's some stuff I care about. I have a couple guitars and some guitar amps, and I kind of have to have a car where I live now in Texas. There's certain things, my audio equipment and stuff. There's things that I need for work and stuff, but I don't care about stuff, updating stuff and buying the next thing or whatever. I could care less about that. It's just not this path. So, You're saying that email is invalid? No. shadowtechalchemy@gmail.com. You're welcome, Dana. Shadowtechalchemy. If you're spelling it right, look, check your spelling, because that is my main email, and I get email through that Gmail every single day. So that does work. All right. So thanks, everybody. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week, and we'll keep doing it. So thanks for everybody's participation. Really appreciate it. See you soon. And if anybody knows anybody that's on the path, send them here. We welcome them over here. Okay, bye.